What's up, y'all?
Hey!
Welcome back to the Oh Here We Go podcast.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Lacey.
And
We back in LA, baby. With a new backdrop.
Eventually it'll be like we're just here and it's never just...
Yeah, but for those of you who don't know, Stephanie flies in from Denver.
Yeah.
And we do the fucking thing.
Every month we're out here trying to make shit happen. So, and it's fun when we're out here. We always do a little photo shoot and then we do like a week of research on the people we want to bring on.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
I love this time of the month.
Yeah. I guess is it like the beginning of the month that we do this?
Yeah. I don't know if it'll stay this way or 3 months in. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
But I just like being busy.
Yeah. It's been, and especially creatively busy, not just like the bullshit work.
Yeah. It's cool to just fucking create and just do it.
I like it. What's been up?
Oh man, just so much. I have honestly gone through the fucking rut the past couple of weeks that I don't want to get into.
You've been going through it.
Yeah, I'm okay now. It was definitely something that I almost like unlocked in my brain, or I just started remembering things that I wish I didn't. Hashtag trauma. It's fine. And I've been working with my therapist through something, and the past couple of weeks were hard because it was like I had to admit some things to myself that were hard to like accept, but I feel like I'm finally on the upswing. I'm a strong bitch, like, and I'm
Yeah,
good.
you are.
I mean, I think it'll come in waves, and this is definitely, it might be something that I talk about on the podcast later, when I just want it to come from a place that is informative and educational, and I don't really want my emotions to get in the way, because it is like,
Yeah, because we were going to talk about it
makes
this week.
It makes me like, this has been the one thing that has been making me like physically like sick, and I'm not like a queasy like, oh my god, I'm gonna vomit, like I'm not that girl. But this is the one thing where I'm like like my stomach and throat, like I feel like
I've actually seen you, like when you thought of, when that topic has come up and you've thought about it, your hand jerked and you're almost like not wrecked, but like the car went. Like.
Yeah, it makes me, it's weird, it's crazy. So I think I'm finally going through the process of like trying to purge or release this like trapped energy, because your body does store trauma, and I feel like I'm like it's coming out of me now that I'm strong enough to handle it.
Yeah, I think whenever we do talk about it, it'll be at a time when you are more not stable with it, but stable with it. Like,
I mean, I hate being like, something's going on, but we can't tell you, but like whatever. But along it kind of,
it's a build-up.
My personal situation, I've actually been wanting to look into tripping or using psilocybin or
bring this up.
LSD as a way, or MDMA as a way to kind of walk myself through this and deal with it and heal from it. So that's what today's episode is all about. Not really my situation, but we have someone come on and it's all about drug reform.
Yeah, we bring on Courtney Barnes, who is, okay, honestly, there's so many layers to her. Let me just read you this introduction on her. So she's a partner at Barnes Caplan, and it's a boutique law and policy firm. And in addition to her being an attorney, she's also a passionate psychedelic advocate. She is the policy advisor for Decriminalize Nature, and she serves as General Counsel for SPORE, which is the Society for Psychedelic Outreach, Reform, and Education. So I met Courtney oddly back in this is just so funny. My life is so ridiculous. So back in August, I had a little weekend fling in Denver, and
love those.
Yeah, honestly, it was great. And I met her out with this fling, and me and her just connected and vibed instantly. She was so kind to me. I didn't know anyone really. I was just kind of bebopping around with this person.
I remember Stephanie texting me and being like, "Oh my God, I love it here. I need to move. Like this girl, she's being so nice. Everybody's just like
so nice,
so nice."
Yeah, and me and her, we didn't even know each other, and she took a picture with me, posted it to her Instagram. I was like, "Oh my God, this girl's so cute." And since then, I've just always followed her, and then I started realizing, oh, wait, this girl isn't just like a lawyer. She's passionate about psychedelic reform and just all of that.
She's down.
She's down. She's smart. She's funny. She's amazing. And so after, us launching this podcast, I was like, we have to have her on to talk about this, because she's constantly posting about how psilocybin, which is mushrooms, and LSD and MDMA and DMT are all working to be used towards research and medicine and everything. And I was
healing
like,
and
therapy,
and,
trauma,
healing military veterans.
Yeah.
Just like she is all about. She's working on, and she's currently doing just decriminalizing all of these things.
Yeah, she has written a lot of the propositions that have been passed in Denver and other places. It's just such a such a good episode, and I'm so thankful she came on.
Yeah, we mentioned in the episode that it's cool to be alive during this time when we're seeing things like psychedelics come back for therapeutic purposes and healing purposes and all of that. I'm like, that's really cool that we are a part of the change. And she said something that she said, "It is my one hope for humanity." What was that line?
Yeah, it was it's my one hope to save our planet, basically.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, because I'm sorry, but you can tell when someone's done psychedelics or not. I'm not even saying like on a physical aspect, but the conversations that people have once they've done them, usually in my experience, are just deeper, more connected. They talk about different things. Their brain is focused on different things. It's like you're all pretty much on the same page with anything.
Yeah.
And I was telling her, I was just like, I can't, once or if or whatever psychedelics become more not only decriminalized but legalized, and in a way that communities can get them in a healthy way, I'm excited to see what that does for the world, basically. Like how because imagine if everyone's on the same page, what that would do for us.
You have this oneness and connection to the earth and each other, and your ego just drops. Your ego will never go away. It's there to protect you, but like your ego drops, and you lose a layer of your selfishness.
Yeah, and it destroys that greed of power, and we talk about that too, and how that we're all driven by power, money, all of that. It's just how it is.
Sex, notoriety.
Yeah, and that's just like not there. So imagine if everybody could have like just more people on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Like when you meet somebody, it's just like it's one of those things when you fucking know.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, and it's just nice, and that's kind of one of the reasons. Moving from Arkansas to Denver, which I still love Arkansas, and I obviously still live there too, but being around people that are on the same page as you is just so key. And I felt like, I just feel like out of my shell, like chains are off. Like when I'm in Denver, I'm like, oh God, thank you. Y'all get it too. Like, and so I just like, I don't know. It was such a good episode to kind of just let people know like, hey, yeah, okay. Yes, they're illegal, but they're working towards them not being legal. And hey, just because the government said these are bad for you, that doesn't necessarily mean those are not, they're not driven by science. They're not driven by facts. Like if alcohol is legal, so should mushrooms. Like there's way more negative side effects compared to that. And I'm just like, so, What
was your first experience tripping, and what was that like, oh fuck moment, being like to this new world?
It actually wasn't that long ago. And I'm also someone who I don't think that young people should be doing things like this. I mean, I don't know about all that. I think we had a million disclaimers in our thing. I'm not someone that says like, oh, go do it and stuff. But I do think that if you're younger and your brain is still developing, I don't think you should be messing around with things like this. And I luckily enough didn't experience it until like my mid 20s. And so it was actually, I was at Red Rocks at a Pretty Lights concert. And I was out of a breakup, and I just wanted to, I was with my neighbors. We all went to Colorado on this trip, and I'm someone who goes to bed at like 10 o'clock. And I was down at the pit before people started walking up, and I was just like, hey guys, like, I'm scared that I'm going to get tired during the show. Like, how can I stay awake? And my friend handed me this piece of paper, and he was like, just put this on tongue, it'll help you stay awake. And I was like, okay, and didn't know anything about it. And then an hour had passed and nothing was happening. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, hey, that's not really, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like caffeine. Am I supposed to like be awake? And he was just like, oh, here's another one.
Oh my God.
And so, and then it really all started to kick in. And I had later found out that it was just like 2 hits of LSD.
You took something and you had no idea what the fuck it was. What?
I mean, but I trusted these people. Okay. Yeah, I mean, thank God. Okay. But no, I did it, and I remember I've been going through so much negativity and dealing with drama and all of that. But I remember in the middle of the show, I was just like, like, fuck. And I remember feeling more love than I've never felt that way. And I remember saying, like, all the people that I even had issues with at the time, I was like, I love them. And I wish that they could try this and we could all be friends, because like, this is so stupid. And it just made me think about all the shit that I was dealing with at the time. And I had never felt the way I had been. It just unlocked that part of my brain that it was like, you're an idiot. Yeah. Like, this is not a big deal. Like, you need to be worried about other things. And I remember going back to this hotel, and the walls were melting. Like, I literally felt like I was in Beetlejuice. And I was like, what the fuck did I take? Like, what is this? And then my friend was like, oh, yeah, that's LSD. And I was like, what? And, well, no, he said acid. And that's such a scary word to me. I was like, acid? What the fuck? Is my insides going to burn? And, no, it just, I remember it lasted for me my first time a full 24 hours. I was at the airport the next day, and the floors were still like, and I was like, oh my God. But I didn't want it to end. I was like, this is such a beautiful world. And like,
your experience wasn't negative.
No.
Even though you were like, what?
It was the most, I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that experience. It was the most beautiful, eye-opening, positive, loving experience. I've never connected with people that way. I've never connected with myself that way. Yeah. And since then, I have continuously done that. And I'm like, you can, and it's not just a one-time thing that you connect one time and then that's it. No, each time you do it, you connect and you connect and you connect. And it's just, so to see these things start being, because I've always used them as, I don't care if I'm at a festival or what. Yeah. It's a therapy session for me. Yeah. Because I am such a tightwad, and I type A, and I work all the fucking time, that anytime I'm doing that, it is therapy. And so to see these things start being woken up in society is like, hey, these aren't bad, and they're getting reformed. Like, it's pushing for therapy. Yeah. I'm like, I'm so happy that I'm alive to see that. Yeah. But yeah, that was my first time. So I just kind of like real fired up.
I love it. I think a lot of people assume that people use any drug as an escape. And that's not really what this is, because for psychedelics, and from my experiences, you're not fucking escaping. No. You are going inside.
You're working through stuff.
And you are working through the shit that it's what I think from my personal experiences. Psychedelics shines a light on the things that you've either been suppressing or what's inside of you. Because a lot of people can think like, oh my God, I have all of these magnificent thoughts and X, Y, and Z and these revelations. And I'm like, those things have always been inside of you, but you're just like tapping in, and you're so grounded and still and connected. And it is like an excellent tool to help ground you and really remind you of who the fuck you really are and what really matters. Yeah. And You can have like these beautiful trips. Any trip is a good trip in my opinion, even if it's been quote dark. The dark ones have brought up things that I've been needing to work on, and like needing to go through this sadness and feel this sadness and just feel my fucking emotions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not an escape. It's definitely like, hey, you're gonna become one with yourself and spend time with yourself. Either you're spending time with yourself, the people you love, or the fucking earth. All of the above.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've told you guys, I've told everybody, I'm like, I'll trip anywhere.
Yeah.
I will trip anywhere. The only thing I will say is to not ever trip during a pandemic and civil rights movement.
Oof.
Because that was scary. Like, I did that and that was terrifying. Because you're just like, you feel like you're in The Walking Dead. Like, you feel like it's just like shit. Everybody's like out. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, wait. Tell me about your experience, because I remember that.
My experience was the summer of 2017. I never grew up knowing what psychedelic. I never grew up around drugs. Period. Like
Same.
Like, of course, I drank in high school, but it wasn't like. I've always really liked to be in control, and like I'd never liked to get myself in shitty fucking situations.
Same.
Yeah. So like, luckily, like I wasn't ever introduced to mind-altering drugs in high school, because my brain was developing. I think I would have been fine if so, but like I never. Anyways.
Oh yeah, I mean
yeah. So
Disclaimer.
it was the summer of 2017. I believe I was 21, maybe. Yeah, and I had just came home to visit Arkansas, and I was visiting Stephanie, and Stephanie at this time and we were getting closer. And at this time of my life, I finally started to have my own enlightenment, and just like waking up and becoming my own person and becoming an adult and asking myself questions I had never asked before, because I've always believed what the fuck I was told to believe. I never like believed. I just have never like done those things for myself. And so Stephanie had the sense that I was like waking up basically, and was like, I think she might be ready. Like, I think this might be a good fit for her, or I want to experience this with her. I don't really know like what you're.
I was just like, it's time.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I remember her like really wanting me to do it, and I was scared because, again, the word acid is like, what the fuck? Like, I thought I was going to fry my brain. I thought I was going to fry my brain and be done for.
But it was a beautiful afternoon.
So here we go. We go by the river in Arkansas, and it was beautiful, and we're sitting by the river, and our other friend was there too. We had music, we had fruit, we had candy, and then all of a sudden I see like the trees breathe, and then music just sounds insane, and I don't know how long we were laying there. I really don't, like, because it seems so quick. Like, when you're tripping, your perspective on time and things is just like manipulated a little bit. Like, you don't really have a perception of time.
Time is so like irrelevant.
Yeah. And so I remember, Stephanie, you were like, all right, well, we gotta get up now. And so I remember standing up and being like, just out in nature, just this beautiful field. The sun was starting to set, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I had never seen nature look so beautiful. And I remember being like, Stephanie, you're a photographer. Why don't you ever come take pictures of this?
I was like, I'm here every day.
She was like, trust me, I tried. It doesn't look the same.
I was like, it doesn't look like this in the sober.
And so I remember
then the deer.
So we were walking back to the car, and I saw this herd of deer, like literally 9 deer. And because I had never tripped before, I was like, am I really seeing those? Because when I trip, I don't make things up out of nowhere. Like, things just like move.
Yeah, and people think that whenever you trip, you see like dinosaurs or like Albert Einstein in the corner. Like,
you don't.
No, you don't.
And so I saw these deer, and I was like, are those real? And y'all were like, yes. And I was like, are you fucking with me? I was like, are those really real? Like, why are they here? I was like, they know. Like, cause I felt so connected to animals. And you
became vegan after that.
Yeah. Anytime I trip, I feel so connected to animals. Like, I think like they either feel our energy or like body temperature, but like they fucking know. And like, anyways, so I remember getting into your car and listening to music and feeling like I was in a spaceship, and music had never felt or sounded so dimensional before. I heard every single sound, and it just like, I don't know how to, it was just deep. Like there was just so much dimension in music. And I remember sitting in the back of the car and looking outside, and when I trip, anything that's white or like a lighter color, I see like hues of lavender and green for some reason. Like I always see green or lavender and green. So the sidewalk was like kind of like a lavender tint. The white flowers were lavender. And I remember sitting in the back of the car, and as someone who grew up in the Christian church, I always feared death because of hell. And I remember sitting there, and that was the first time I accepted death. And I was like, damn, if we were, this is kind of like dark, but I was like, if we were to crash right now, I would be okay, because I have served my purpose and it's time for me to go.
Jesus Christ, that was happening to you in the back seat?
Yeah, and I was like, I've lived a good life and I'm supposed to go home.
What? It's got dark. It's not always like this.
But no, like,
just kidding.
It's a good thing, because I'm not scared of death now. I accepted it. Like,
I am. I feel like I have so much shit to do. I'm like, I don't want to die right now. Like, I do not want to die, because I'm just like, I'm busy. Like, I have stuff to do. I like doing it. I don't know. So I guess I haven't had that little experience yet.
I mean, death is death. It is what it is. And I'm like, so I'm not really controlling this life. So like, if I go, I'm supposed to go. It's my time.
This intro, man. This intro is
so that was my experience. Also, like, being like a little influencer fucking rat. Like, when social media is so fucking important to me.
While you're tripping, you feel stupid whenever you put. Whenever you're tripping and you look at your social media, I hope each and every one of you feels stupid, because we do.
I remember opening my phone and seeing people post selfies, and even like going to my page, and I was like,
it's embarrassing.
I was like,
not your page, but anybody.
But yeah, it's just like you're fluffing up your ego on social media, and I just saw that, and I was like, ew.
Whenever I'm high, I'm like, I'll like look at my work, and I'm like, yeah, like this looks cool. And whenever I'm tripping, I'm like, this is awful. Why did I post this? What? I'll like delete pictures of myself. I'm like, ew, oh my God. But then like I look at other people in situations, I'm like, this is so beautiful. But you need that thing that just destroys your ego for a fucking second.
Yeah.
And breaks it back down, and then you build it up in a different way again, each and every time. And oh, what an intro. Fuck. Jesus Christ.
We're really letting the world know.
Yeah. Okay. I had to edit it a little bit, but okay. So stupid. Anyway. Okay. So that's our experience.
We're excited.
Yeah.
We're excited to see the world start to change when it comes to psychedelics.
We're excited to see the world get it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, it's changed our lives. We would not be here today. We wouldn't be connecting in this way. We wouldn't be as close as we were. All the relationships that we've made from the moment I did it and you did it would not have been formed without it. Like I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, I wouldn't even gotten into the music that I got into without it. I wouldn't have connected with the artists that I've connected with that are now friends, that are now we wouldn't be doing this.
I'm way more accepting of myself and of others. Like I just have way more empathy.
This way. And so it's been a beautiful thing to see us personally experience and respect it and love it and treat it with the respect that it deserves, and to now see it being known to like all the therapeutic parts of it as well. And so we have Courtney on, and she talks to us about it, and it's fucking awesome. And
so without further ado,
here we go.
Peace, love, and drugs, y'all.
Oh my God, bye.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Oh Here We Go podcast.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Lacey.
And today we have Courtney Barnes on with us today. And yeah, Courtney, hi.
Hi. I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me too.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for coming back all the way to LA. I thought you were already here, and I'm sorry, but thanks for coming in for it.
Any excuse to come to California.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Tell us, okay, so obviously tell us all the layers that you have to you right now. Like who are you?
Wow, well that changes every day. But so first and foremost, I'm an attorney. I am a partner at Barnes Caplan. We are a boutique law and policy firm. I'm also a very passionate psychedelic advocate. I am policy advisor for Decriminalize Nature, as well as General Counsel for SPORE, which is the Society for Psychedelic Outreach, Reform, and Education. And I'm also an advisory board member with Heroic Hearts Project, Inc., which connects veterans with psychedelic therapy throughout the country and overseas, as well as provides mental health services and the like. So lots of content to cover.
You said that so like I would have had to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
that's a lot.
If we ever get ourselves into some shit, can you help us?
My goal and objective is to prevent that from happening. But I can make a good recommendation if that were to occur.
Okay.
So I guess what kind of lawyer are you?
Sure. So my focus primarily is hemp, cannabis, psychedelics, natural substances. As far as a day-to-day, I do a lot of FDA compliance for like hemp foods and dietary supplements, cosmetics, like in natural products and emerging industries. But my passion and primary focus for the past probably year or so has been implementing drug policy reform, so helping to decriminalize and regulate psychedelics at the local and state level.
Wow. I feel like a dumbass when it comes to the law and like lawyers. So like, can you specialized in hemp or no?
Mm-hmm. So day to day, yeah. So I came from Vicente Cederberg, which is a big cannabis law firm. I was there for 5 years before I started my own firm. And so 2018 Farm Bill, growing hemp, manufacturing it into consumer products like cosmetics and dietary supplements, and then ensuring risk management and allocation throughout the supply chain. So helping to sell and market CBD essentially.
What made you want to get into this field?
So there's a lot of contributing factors. Some of it was luck and some of it was kind of just my family history. My father was actually a DEA agent. He passed away, but I was born in Thailand and lived in India.
Whoa.
And so,
I'm just going to throw that in there.
Sorry,
it's kind of interesting because we are both fighting the war on drugs just from different angles.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So his focus was opium in Asia and preventing the illicit diversion of opium. But was pretty cool in high school, like way cooler than my mom, I think, about partying and such. Yeah. But I kind of had that drug kind of fascination. Mm-hmm. And through live music, actually, I got connected with the National Cannabis Industry Association, and it was sort of serendipitous and ended up at Vicente Cederberg, which was my first internship in law school and happened to be a really prominent cannabis firm. So they wrote the law that legalized cannabis in Colorado. And so that was kind of like my whole upbringing, like 21 to 26. And then dream job, never left. It was like the only internship I had in law school and just stayed until I was an attorney there. And then started my own firm this past August. But I mean, it is a dream job. I get to talk about drugs all day and help legalize drugs.
It's so progressive. Like, hell yeah.
Especially within the past, I feel like especially with psychedelics the past few years, it's really the past year that's been like growing and getting out there, right?
It is picking up with rapid speed. So yes, in 2019 we helped draft the Denver Decriminalization of Psilocybin initiative, which was passed by voters, and then in 2020 Oakland passed a resolution kind of deprioritizing the enforcement of not just psilocybin but naturally produced psychedelics. So DMT, ibogaine, psilocybin, psilocin, ayahuasca, sort of all of those kind of natural compounds. And since then, I think there's 6 other localities that have passed legislation: Cambridge, Massachusetts, Santa Cruz, Somerville, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And so we're seeing it grow, exponentially. Oregon passed.
Yeah, I was just about to say Oregon just recently happened.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. They passed a decriminalization of simple possession of all drugs, as well as a clinical program for providing access to psilocybin, so mushrooms, in a kind of clinical therapeutic setting. And so that's in the process. And then this year we've seen Florida introduced a psilocybin bill.
Wow.
Vermont is introducing a deregulation of controlled substances bill. And then most excitingly, at least in my opinion, is California recently introduced a decriminalization, but it actually goes a little bit further, of pretty much all psychedelics, including ketamine and MDMA, in addition to DMT, ibogaine, psilocybin, psilocin. What else is there? Yeah, LSD and mescaline. So
that would be not recreational, but
So it doesn't provide a legal kind of access model, so you can't just go start selling. But you would be able to share in the social setting, as well as propagate or cultivate psychedelic mushrooms and other compounds on your property, and kind of like a grow, gather, gift model. And it would actually be lawful. So it's a really groundbreaking bill. Senator Wiener out of the Bay Area introduced it, and we're really working hard to help push that along. But it's really, really exciting.
We were going to ask about that, so it hasn't gone through yet, but it's hopeful.
Yes, so it's been introduced, and then now it'll kind of work its way through the committee process, and that's where the importance of lobbying and really educating the legislatures occurs. And hopefully we'll see it go through this session, but if not, it'll have another opportunity. And obviously we'll keep working on it until we get there.
Yeah. Well, what is? I know that you're part of Decriminalize Nature. Kind of explain what that is exactly.
Sure. So Decriminalize Nature is an incredible nonprofit organization that is working to essentially reestablish or fight for humans to be able to reestablish their relationship with nature by decriminalizing naturally produced entheogenic compounds, so psychedelics, and they've created this incredible grassroots kind of movement. For example, Denver passed the psilocybin ordinance, but the other 7 cities or 6 cities or so that have passed legislation at the local level have all been a decriminalized nature model and some sort of iteration.
Okay.
So they're very open source, but it is a kind of just advocacy organization focused on education and implementing policy reform as quickly as possible and as broad scope as possible with respect to naturally occurring and naturally produced psychedelics.
Okay. Did that start in Denver?
So it started in Oakland, California.
Oh, okay. Dang. Okay.
So with all of this progression, I mean, obviously we're kind of like the consumers. What is going on internally as far as research goes for all of this progression and decriminalization going on? Like, what is really happening? Because I don't know. I just see like, oh, things are passing. Like, great.
Sure. So there's incredible research coming out of all sorts of universities. MAPS is doing really great things. We should see some sort of FDA approved, I believe, synthetic psilocybin for PTSD and other.
Why would they do synthetic?
So that's a great question. It's because when you are going through the drug approval process, you have to be able to replicate almost, to the pinpoint that same compound every time. So that's why it's hard with cannabis as well, because you're working with nature. So it's not going to be the same every time. It's going to be slightly different every time. So by isolating the, active constituent and producing it synthetically, you get that uniformity. That's easier to push through. So
is it easier to get that with mushrooms or LSD than marijuana?
Yeah. So LSD is, originally derived from a fungus, but it is synthetically produced for what we would know and consume. So yes, you can replicate it. It's manufactured. You're not dealing with Mother Nature and sort of all of those variables of, every orange you're going to grow has a different sugar content.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same, if you see. So to show the FDA the efficacy and consistency in batch to batch for manufacturing, synthetics are easier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like similar with cannabis, where there's a huge desire, and I think we'll maintain that, to have that kind of natural compound as opposed to synthetic production. So I think there's definitely consumers for both. And so going back to the FDA approval, that'll be hopefully, I think, in the next 5 years easily.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so you'll have that pharmaceutical route for accessing some of these compounds.
Wow.
And then the Decriminalize Nature work is intended to protect the community-based ceremony and healing, which, has been occurring for thousands of years, in some more the spiritual, less clinical, sort of organic type access models that are really from the community upwards as opposed to top down. So there's lots of things going on, but the goal is to decriminalize so that people are not going to jail for using these substances. It's absolutely absurd that people are spending years and years in prison for consuming something you can grow.
Yeah.
And then also providing the research to get these compounds approved as pharmaceuticals so that those that are not consumers now and wouldn't necessarily try something that's illegal have access to it for at least certain indications going forward. So it's a lot going on. It's really exciting.
So, like, would it be used, so I guess, like obviously you agree with psychedelics being used as like antidepressants and all that stuff. So how would that work? Like, would they change, like, if it replaced like an antidepressant in like a pharmaceutical aspect, would it be like a pill, or would it be like, what does that look like?
So there's a lot of different options, but yes, it's typically, you would be able to consume it in an ingestible. So it's not going to be, in mushroom form. There's a lot of variety, and I think, I could be mistaken, but in Oregon, they don't necessarily restrict the method of ingestion for the psilocybin. So theoretically, there could be different types of products you could consume, but it's all going to be under the supervision of a facilitator. So it's not like cannabis where you can go to the store, buy it, take it home, and do what you want with it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're a little bit further away from that.
It'd be like in a therapeutic setting, or like in therapy.
Yes. So you would go into like a room, and there's various companies that are really working on to like make it less sterile feeling, but sort of a comfortable couch type deal. And you would consume it under the supervision of a trained facilitator, and they're intended to be there to just kind of help supervise or, help you work through things. But you don't necessarily, it's not necessarily as much of like a question and answer, like, how are you feeling right now type deal, but just to make sure you've got the right set and setting.
Are there studies that show that psilocybin or psychedelics or psychotherapy cures things like PTSD or depression? And how would that affect I don't really want to get into conspiracies, but like, how would that affect the pharmaceutical industry? Because there's a lot of ideas that the pharmaceutical industry would never accept it because it would actually fix something. Is that a myth?
There's truth to all of it. But the pharmaceutical industry definitely has an interest in developing psychedelic compounds for use in drugs. For example, it's currently being studied, psilocybin as well as MDMA and other compounds are being studied for use in the treatment of PTSD and have shown really significant results, and even just like a single use in the proper set and setting of being able to kind of go inside and process that trauma and pain, and as opposed to just burying it, which many other, pharmaceuticals do, it enables you to sort of sit with it, accept it, and from this place of like true,
and
love,
forgive
yourself and forgive others, and sort of build that self-acceptance. So I think back in the 70s, and when Prohibition kind of came to be and they were passing all of these ridiculous drug laws based on, politics and racism and fear of immigration and not science, there was this push of not wanting to kind of allow people to take control of their own consciousness and make decisions for themselves that would involve, not going to war or these other kind of timely issues. But there's huge pharmaceutical industry interest in developing psychedelics for indications. It's actually becoming one of the main kind of touch points on the debate of what the future should look like with psychedelics, which is, facilitators communities around the world have been using these compounds for thousands of years in religious and spiritual ceremony. And then we have this huge therapeutic and medical potential, and how can we protect and preserve both of these, valid mechanisms for access without going totally to pharmaceuticals, where now we're giving the people in power the tools to heal communities that have trauma because of oppression from people in power, so it's like we want to make sure that we can keep the tools for healing with the people that need it the most and that can benefit it, and that probably won't go to a clinical setting to use a psychedelic in front of a clinician, but that's a viable treatment option that should be available. But we also need to protect people who want to go use it in community healing ceremonies or grow their own,
One of my friends actually did MDMA a therapy session, and he learned about it through one of his friends who's been like going to this doctor in New York, and it's it's a controlled, facilitated environment. And basically my friend did it, and you have like a facilitator who helps you and it guides you through it. But it's basically what you said, like MDMA, it takes you to this place and it unlocks like all of your darkest traumas and fears, but you're doing it in a place that you're filled with so much love. And so you're kind of like walking with your traumas, and you're able to do so because you're in a place of like goodness and love and like understanding, and it's not like a scary place, and it's very healing.
Absolutely. It's really all about processing your trauma and your emotions, right? You can't move past it unless you go through it. So providing that opportunity and safe space to work through some really painful stuff, but work through it instead of just repressing it and bearing it, or distracting yourself, which I think has been kind of the trend with pharmaceuticals, at least in the past, where it's just kind of make you stop thinking about it, but you're not actually working on it.
It's just like numbing, like putting a Band-Aid on.
As far as like I read an article where like a couple years ago, where they're starting to legalize MDMA for research, but they were saying how people were worried because with like Molly, you obviously have like the affected serotonin, the next few days are pretty rough. It really affects people that are depressed, that end up becoming even more depressed like a few days later. People with bipolar disorder, it'll affect this and that. But they were saying that when like scientists, or like when it's made in a lab, pure MDMA actually doesn't have those negative effects. Like, is that true? Or
so I'm not a scientist, so I don't want to speak to that. But yes, there's a lot of variable as far as the side effects and sort of withdrawal symptoms that are primarily a result of different cutting agents, or just not having that pure compound. So I do believe, they do affect your serotonin and different chemicals in your brain. And there are, same with psychedelics, certain mental illnesses that would make you at higher risk for a negative complication when using them.
Right?
Yes.
So going.
But they can be used safely. And if you think about, you watch the drug commercials for antidepressants and you see a 2-minute scroll of all the potential side effects. There's
insane.
Actually far less with MDMA and especially some of these natural compounds that I believe, make them a much better alternative and a much safer alternative at the end of the day.
It's also kind of like they're kind of pushing it for relationship research too, right?
It's all about opening the heart space. And, really like unconditional self-acceptance and love, and being able to be vulnerable and speak from your heart. And I feel like, for example, we, even in therapy, it takes so much time to kind of break down your ego and
it really does.
Absolutely, because you have all these opinions about, well, that, I don't care, that doesn't bother me, I'm better than that, et cetera, et cetera.
Your ego is like built up to protect you.
And
like when you're on MDMA or like psilocybin or LSD,
breaks it down.
It breaks your ego down, and you just like are there you're just there with a person, not all of this other bullshit that you've built up over the over your lifetime to protect yourself.
Absolutely. I like to call it like, it takes you back to like 5-year-old, like, you know,
Yeah, your
egoless child, where you're like, that really hurt my feelings, or, you know, that was really tough for me, but
cute.
you acknowledge how you really feel
Yeah.
instead of just kind of pretending that you don't. And I think that psychedelics are really beautiful in that regard, especially in an introspective kind of intentional setting where you're really going within, and enabling you to be okay with that feeling too, and not be embarrassed or not feel like, you know, you're less of a man because something hurt your feelings or you were really affected by that.
Yeah.
But you can approach it with love and then release it if you need to. Or
Even like with Stephanie,
God.
even with Stephanie, like there's been times where, I mean, we don't really like fight, but there's like been times where there's just like,
What?
like I'll get to it. But there's been times where we've just had like little tiffs or disagreements or just like annoyance, like you can just feel it. And anytime I've been on drugs around her, I'm like, damn, I just love that person. Like I know who she is, I know her intentions, and like
Also, us just
I love
like
her.
growing together so much. Like
Yeah.
we're just like, we just
Like, all that
know
shit doesn't
now.
matter.
Yeah, cute. Okay,
Absolutely.
little side
And communication's really important, right?
yeah.
So it helps you kind of just like talk about what you feel instead of assuming things about what other people think and feel. And
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we've been. Oh, okay. And I will say, I want to know if you agree with this too. As far as like talking about the community being more accessible to psychedelics and stuff, I feel like you can tell, or a person is a specific person if they've done psychedelics. Like they've
You can tell.
like not even tell, but like they could be totally normal, but conversations with them are just different than a person who hasn't experienced that. So I'm kind of interested in seeing when this becomes a thing that people can access, how that changes every community, how it changes I want to say the world,
No,
but like,
absolutely.
you know what I mean?
one of the most like cheesy but authentic things that I say about psychedelics when I talk about the future is like, I believe that plant medicine is like the one hope that I have for actually saving humanity.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God.
but not just necessarily, and you think
Quote.
about it, the difference of like, so, you know, using at music festivals or in a recreational setting, it's beautiful, it's great, it's wonderful, but actually doing healing work in an intentional
Yeah.
kind of like introspective setting is a whole different ballgame. And if we can get more people to heal and use these substances and experience that like ego death, even if just for a moment.
Yeah.
Just
I do
wake
believe
up.
it's like the one
And-
tangible idea I have
to
for
save our
Yeah.
planet too. Yeah. Just because.
just like
Just
to open your consciousness.
Destroy the greed of power, like almost, and just to like look at things in a more holistic.
the oneness, right?
Yeah.
So you feel less different. You are one consciousness, and you can take it to whatever scale you're comfortable with as far as, you know, going into the kind of abstract. But it's so true. You feel more connected with your community. You feel less, you know, better or worse than anyone else. And if we can get to a place where people have self-acceptance for themselves as well as for others, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, like everyone's more on the same page than like all these different pages. And
Yeah.
what state have you found has been the most progressive as far as this?
Sure. So, I mean, Denver was, you know, that's one of my biggest accomplishments in being a first mover. And Colorado was also the first state to create an adult use regulatory system for cannabis, so providing access. So I do believe Colorado's been a thought leader as far as drug policy reform goes, but California obviously, in that it's from the cannabis days to now, and they've had Oakland and Santa Cruz pass resolutions. I, you know, am biased, of course, but think that Senator Wiener's SB 519 is it will serve as a model for many other states in decriminalizing and actually legalizing certain activities with psychedelics. So I'm really, really proud of California for taking that step forward. And I think we'll continue to see them really push the boundaries in a way that's responsible and thoughtful. So
Is that what made you want to come here? Like kind of that, like how they've been with everything, or instead of Denver? Or?
I love Denver, and I love California. The weather's great. The people are amazing. I like the challenge and just kind of throwing yourself in a new environment. But they're both my 2 favorite states in the country.
Dude, how cool that we live in these states.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking cool. And also how cool that we get to live in this lifetime where we're seeing this come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I was in the lifetime where I could just frolic around with these things, but it's also nice to
We're the change, y'all. It's so fucking cool. I'm gonna be old and be like, remember when I was 24 and we were like just now breaking into this?
Absolutely. We are the generation that's going to implement drug policy reform and kind of help heal these past 50 plus years of prohibition that have created so much harm in communities. And so it is a really exciting time to be alive for drug policy and expanding consciousness, because goodness, we need that right now.
Goodness, we need that right now. I mean, are there any do you feel there's any negatives to legalizing psychedelics?
I think education is critical. So I actually was at a coffee shop earlier and was talking to this gentleman who asked what I was doing on my laptop, and we were getting into drugs, and he kind of asked the same thing, and it was like, you can't regulate stupidity out of existence, but you also shouldn't be sending people to jail for using substances and taking control of their consciousness, and that should absolutely be a right. And while there are, risks of certain negative consequences, most of those can be resolved with education and teaching people the realities of using these substances. But for every, horrible news story you read about someone freaking out, there's exponentially more people that have used them safely without any issues at all. And so it's really just this hyper focusing back from, the 80s and 90s of the tragedies that occurred. But for the most part, they're very, very safe, non-addictive substances. So as long as you use them intentionally, I think set and setting is so critical. You can have a bad time if it really, what you're bringing to the space when you're ingesting a hallucinogenic substance it's kind of like what you put out, you're going to get back.
Yeah.
So it's just important to go into it thoughtfully and with the understanding of the potential effects and such. But also prohibition is creating much more danger in this regard, where testing is still considered paraphernalia. I think that's one of the greatest things about Senator Wiener's bill is that, drug testing kits, so you can make sure you're ingesting what you think you're ingesting.
That's considered
in like almost every state. So people can get arrested for just trying to educate themselves on what they're putting into their bodies, but you can't put anything into your body regardless of what it is, and it's illegal if it's a controlled substance. So that, I think, giving people the tools to make better decisions about their drug use is critical. And I do think the benefits far outweigh the detriments, and how we're just filling prisons with people that are like not doing anything harmful.
I want to make it like a side note, because you said something about like people can have like a freak out on it, like that could be like a negative side effect. But alcohol came to my mind, and I was like, cool, alcohol, casual settings, yeehaw. But I'm like, there's so much bad shit that can come from alcohol too, and it's just fucking normalized. Like, people become alcoholics and depression, like drunk driving. Like, there's so much. It's fine, but like that's just like another example of like you can't take the stupid out of people, or like, I mean,
absolutely.
I feel like what I just said could have been like a little just not empathetic. Like, I get alcoholism is a thing, so like, sorry about that.
No,
but
we get what you're saying.
But it's the regulation. We allow people to do so many different things. And actually, the coffee shop conversation, he was talking about how, not every state requires you to wear a helmet on a motorcycle. And it's like, well, it's great and it's safer if people do wear them, but at the same time, people are going to crash regardless. And how many laws can you put on people's behavior and actually have like a significant impact on safety and making the world a better place? And it's like, clearly after all of these decades of prohibition, we've seen that criminalizing controlled substances isn't making the community safer, isn't making people smarter. So same, at the end of the day, people are going to make their own choices, some better than others, but we should give people the freedom to control their consciousness.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm just like stuck on this alcohol thing. I'm like, what are the benefits of alcohol?
money.
I'm like money. I mean,
I love a nice cocktail. Don't
I mean,
get
me
me
too.
wrong.
But I'm just like
No,
thinking,
yeah.
I'm like compared to some like
Psychedelics or
when
something.
alcohol is legal, and then psychedelics, there's so many like healing benefits to it. I'm
Right?
like, what the fuck?
It's because they're
it's-
not making money off of psychedelics
and
right?
stigma and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
we created this narrative that psychedelics are associated with honestly it's like based on racism and immigration and trying to tie drug use in with minorities and it's not based on science or necessarily trying to protect public harm, but it was kind of that Vietnam era. So it's undoing all of these years of misinformation surrounding drug use. And I think that's why cannabis has been so helpful in that regard of being like, it started with one state. Now we're at about 35 with medical and I think 15 plus with adult use. And, no one died still and people are making a ton of money. The government is making so much money on the industry and people are happier and we have a natural alternative. And I think that's made people more open-minded because cannabis at the federal level is classified along with LSD and DMT and all of these psychedelics as a Schedule I drug, which means that the government believes that they have a high potential for abuse, no accepted medical use for treatment in the United States, a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision, and essentially, they're determined to have no medical value. And we know that's absolutely just not true anymore.
Yeah.
And we have all these states. So I think cannabis was a good gateway, and just having people be more open-minded that maybe not everything the government does or says you should do or doesn't or not do is totally accurate.
Yeah.
And maybe you should kind of make your own decisions or
Yeah.
at least seek a second opinion.
Yeah,
So.
thank God we have cannabis as an example because we've seen so much. We've just seen that industry blow up, and it's people are like, oh, I use it for my anxiety and sleep and X, Y, and Z, and like so many people are just like banking off that industry now. So I'm like, I know humans and people are driven by money, like that's what this fucking world is. So I'm like, at least we have that example. And so it can just like have like a little domino effect for the rest.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that it's like money is a contributing factor into regulation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just kind of showing that, there's a better way to approach these substances. And I think treating it as a health issue and really, just kind of taking a realistic, practical approach. Like maybe we should reevaluate the science every time you get a better study, but at least every 10 years or 5 years. And then we're still fighting that process with cannabis. But I am grateful for the way that it has sort of shown a pathway forward with the grassroots decriminalization, states taking that kind of bold first move to regulate, in contradiction of the federal government, and then kind of getting past that enforcement era where now we have a president that actually did state that decriminalization of controlled substances should be a thing. And hopefully we'll see it continue to move in that direction because we desperately need better options for mental health and just well-being.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of get into ketamine because I've personally never done that, but my ex, he struggled with depression and bipolar disorder, and whenever he was getting on medication for it, they recommended, they were like, well, why don't you just try ketamine? And he was really taken back by that, and he was like, no, I don't want to do something like that. And I don't know if there's any negative side effects to it or not, but I know that he for a good portion of time was self-medicating through microdosing. So there would be a day where he actually could not get out of bed, could not lift his arms up because he was so depressed.
Microdosing on what?
LSD. Oh, I was about to get to that. But yeah, so the only thing that would get him up was like microdosing on a small amount of LSD, not to the point where you could like, oh my God, like I'm seeing stuff, but enough to get you out of bed, really like reprogramming like your brain pretty much for the whole day. And then he would just be fine for the next 3 months. And I don't know what does ketamine exactly, because I know it's also a party, like I see people doing it at parties too, and I'm like, what is it like?
So again, I'm not a doctor, but ketamine originally was approved for as an analgesic, so for like pain during surgery and various different things, but it is actually coming out with significant benefits with respect to depression in that it is able to, so and again, disclaimer, there's someone that I'm sure can say this more articulately
Yeah.
and accurately. But so you think about taking antidepressants, and they usually take like 4 to 6 weeks to kick in, and it's kind of a slow process. And but with that, it's kind of, you have that unhealthy thought or that negative thought, and then the negative thought kind of becomes this like loop, and then the loop becomes this unhealthy behavior, and then you're kind of stuck in this cycle, which is, depression or
Is the negative thought the common voice in the head? Or,
yeah, it can be anything, but it's just that you can't break that
a cloud.
pattern,
Yeah.
like it keeps perpetuating, and that's what keeps you in this, we all have bad moods, good moods, but when you're not able to break that kind of bad mood and it becomes this kind of just pattern, ketamine is able to or it's shown to be able to kind of like snap you out of that unhealthy thought pattern immediately and quickly. So it has a very fast onset, and so there's really some cool studies coming out on its ability to do that. Now, based on, it's important that you also use the tools to build upon that freedom, and you're not just using it as a crutch again to escape the bad feelings.
Like use it intentionally.
Yeah, and pair it with the kind of tools you need to change your behavior without the use of a ketamine or another controlled substance, because it is the same thing. Like if you're just trying to bury it or feel better drinking wine so you can forget about your day, like and you're not doing the work to really process and work on what's causing it. But there's some really, really great research coming out on its efficacy for its ability to treat depression and other mental health indications. And so I think we'll see more of it in that regard.
Okay.
That is typically not the party drug. It's actually approved for intramuscular and intravenous, so it's injected as a liquid, whereas most party drugs in ketamine form are a powder that you would, snort.
Okay.
So it's not like, that's not what you're doing in this kind of setting.
This is different, or
it's the same compound, but in a different administration. So
okay,
and
what is it derived from?
I need to get into manufacturing ketamine, but it is a synthetic pharmaceutical, and so you would, in the same way, or traditionally, use it under the supervision of a doctor, or and then trying to check in. But there is some really great information coming out on its ability to treat these things. So yeah, that's probably as far as I can go.
Is it considered a psychedelic?
No, it's considered a dissociative, but it can have kind of psychedelic properties where people do hallucinate in certain. And there's so many different kinds of ketamine, or like variations. And so, again, I apologize to the medical community who's like cringing while I talk about this right now. But that's sort of the very 101 kind of
disclaimer.
Yeah.
Not a scientist or a doctor.
Don't quote me on.
just asking her questions.
Okay. Do you personally prefer LSD or mushrooms, and why?
Ooh. Also, interesting question as my capacity. This is awkward. Back in the day, in my, I would say, I think they both have different benefits, but psilocybin I am a bigger fan of, in that the therapeutic experiences I have had. I have grown this like really pure respect and fondness towards it, where I think you can both have been shown to be beneficial in an introspective setting, but I have not had the opportunity to use LSD in a kind of as of like a healing modality as opposed to just recreational. But I mean, it's a beautiful world.
I mean, what was the first time you ever like experienced? Well, which one, I'm assuming you experienced psilocybin first. How old were you?
I don't think I can answer that question.
Okay, what was
as a young, immature, non-attorney?
Okay, we'll just get that out.
Yeah, before I came to learn all my lessons, and now I'm fighting for it to have legal access so I can talk about it.
Well, okay, what was your first? What
was your experience like?
Maybe the music festival, kind of
setting.
Yeah. I had I was at a Pretty Lights concert, and I had no idea what it even was. And my friend gave it to me. They're like, "This will help you stay awake." And I was like, "Okay." I had no idea. It was just like, boom. And it was, I remember thinking at the show, I was like, I wish all the people that didn't like me could try this and we could all be friends.
I know, you're like, what if Donald Trump used...
They say that if all the world leaders sat in a room together while on psilocybin,
or maybe
there would be no
not
wars.
in the room together the first time, but then you could like
maybe not they're all just like in there tripping together.
But it goes to show you too, like the story you just explained, like your personality and mindset and like upbringing, you know, turn that into a beautiful experience. But we talk about edibles and, you know, having that first bad time where you didn't know what you were using, you didn't know how strong it was going to be, and you're kind of thrown into this altered state of mind. That's where we, you know, have the potential to have these kind of less beautiful stories in it. And so it's it just goes to show you how important it is to educate yourself and to, you know, be with people you trust and have that kind of environment when you're going to kind of step into the new kind of this kind of vulnerable state.
Okay.
One thing that I love, especially like when I've been trying to experience psilocybin or LSD with people that I love, like the people in my life that haven't tried it before, because I never want to push something on somebody because that would be fucking weird. But like it is like a beautiful experience, and because I love them, I want to experience that love with them. And it's hard to explain to somebody who's never done it before. It's like really hard because they just don't really like understand what's going on. But one thing that I love about it is you have control. I mean, if in a controlled if you take a controlled amount, you have control over yourself and your thoughts and your actions. Like a lot of people think that they're gonna not be themselves, or they're gonna be like tripping out or like hallucinating. Yeah, like they don't understand. But I'm like, no, it is you. You know what you're saying. You're fully aware of what is happening. It's just like a
different access to
your perspectives
brain.
are like a little thrown off. That's why things move. That's why things like sound better, like look better.
Yeah. I mean,
and it varies so much from person to person. So it is just like being around people you trust that aren't gonna you know, make fun of you and stare at you and ask you how hard you're tripping and if you're okay, bro, and like make you and but you have those stories, and that's really where the problems come from, is because it is such a beautiful thing if you can put yourself in the right headspace and really embrace it. And I think fighting it is one of the biggest kind of things you can teach people, especially going into a therapeutic use or even just generally, is just kind of, you know, go with the flow. It's not going to last forever. Yeah. There's nothing you can't handle, and just kind of to be open-minded, where I feel like as soon as people are put into this unfamiliar state, they kind of push back, and then that, you know, creates the stress and the cortisol and all of the things that can make your time less enjoyable. Yeah.
What about DMT? What's research been for that? As far, is that considered as part of one of the things that it's going to be legalized, or?
So DMT is a chemical compound that is produced in a variety of different plants as well as in certain animals, and it can also be synthetically produced, and it is a psychedelic. It is a hallucinogenic substance that has demonstrated to have, you know, really profound effects on a variety of different indications, anything from end-of-life anxiety to just I believe addiction as well. There's a lot of great research on it as well. It's definitely one of the, if not the most powerful hallucinogen. Yes.
Over ayahuasca?
So ayahuasca, the active ingredient is DMT. So it's kind of a mixture of, and there's various different ways to make it, of two plants or plants and roots that contains DMT. So it is, and then there's various different other ways you can either extract it or produce it, and it is a very, very intense psychedelic experience that's usually, at least if it's not in ayahuasca, but if it's smoked or consumed, it's a shorter onset and duration, but also has the potential to really create healing and acceptance and this kind of understanding of the oneness of the universe, and you know, people call it the spirit molecule or the God molecule, and so definitely something not to be taken lightly. I think there's a lot of danger and safety issues with respect to just like using it in a pen and not having the like, and just kind of as a party drug. I think it is something that should absolutely be used thoughtfully and with care and a lot of research, because it is a very powerful substance, but hugely, you know, the potential is incredible as well. And we'll see more research coming out on it as we see with the rest of the psychedelics.
Is end of life anxiety a common thing? Because I actually know a couple of people in my life who are scared of death and don't want to talk about it. And that's something I'm like, I've been here lifetimes before, and I'll come right back if I need to.
So yes, and I absolutely resonate with all of that. End of life anxiety is a very common thing, and especially with people that don't either, you know, have that religious background, or that don't have the understanding of sort of the, you know, matter's neither created nor destroyed. Same with energy. And we're all here, and it'll change form, and you know, we can get into that. But DMT is really incredible in that regard, because it's almost, you know, people have described it as like a rebirth, like you meet God, but you also become sort of one with the universe. So you lose that body, and it's just the consciousness experience, and it's really like the most beautiful thing ever.
I want to try it soon.
And this is not absolutely
I've never tried
not
it.
advocating anyone use illegal substances, but we are working to legalize substances.
Wait.
Full of disclaimers. But that kind of understanding that, like, you know, like, we're all still here, and we, you know, what is death? Like, it can be a beautiful thing, and what we know life as this kind of in-body experience in our physical kind of time on earth. It's not so scary. Obviously pain is, but end-of-life anxiety is a very common thing where people grasp that what they know as their entire existence is, you know,
just this lifetime,
and is coming to an end, and there's the regrets and, you know,
I
wishes.
didn't do enough.
And I think psychedelics are really good with that self-acceptance of it doesn't matter what happened yesterday. I love me now, being in the present.
Yeah,
And
I'm doing my purpose in this lifetime. I also would like to try past life regression therapy. Just to...
Is that with hypnotism?
Like a hypnotherapist who can regress you back into your past lives and
do that
like
one day.
tell you what happened, why you died, what traumas or like karma you may be experiencing in this lifetime. I'm good, but I'm just curious.
No, I get robbed every year, so I want to know what I did in my past life. Like, oh my God, I feel like I was like some bandit or something.
That's awesome.
I have a question too, because this was kind of brought up to our attention within the past week. As far as what have you heard about or know anything about, like, as far as trying psychedelics while on ADHD medicine? Like, what is that? Like, have you?
I don't know, and that's definitely contraindications would not be something I could talk about here, but there are interactions with certain drugs with respect to using psychedelics that you absolutely want to understand before you try them.
Because I had never even, I'm like, what? Like, why would you do both of those things?
I agree. But I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was anything as far as like research too. If they're like, this would.
From the experience that I've heard about, ADHD makes this person focus. And while he was tripping, he had a more like focused trip, because sometimes when you're tripping, you have so many thoughts. And your like head is like, oh my fucking God, like
and we didn't know, like, as far as like a research standpoint, like if that was something that people were, because the mind is like, so there's so many things that can be opened, and I was just like, oh, I never even considered that, because we obviously need help opening it. So.
Absolutely. I mean, polysubstance use is very common, but there can be.
Wait, what is polysubstance?
So using more than one substance at a time. Excuse me. And so exactly, people. I mean, if you think about coffee and sugar and all these things are all mind-altering chemicals, whether we put a label of them as a drug or not, alcohol.
Yeah.
So there are different effects, and especially when you're getting into producing elevated amounts of a particular chemical, you want to do your research, and I'm sure there is research coming out on it, but I don't.
I didn't know if there was anything. Okay. Has there been a specific case that you may have like that's done and like out that you've worked on as far as like psychedelics and stuff that like with your law firm or
like
anything?
the military veterans?
Oh yeah.
Do you have like any?
Sure.
Yeah, we kind of want to talk about
so
that.
I don't litigate, thank goodness. But my work has been, for example, I got to help draft the Denver psilocybin ordinance. I also helped write the Oakland Community Healing Initiative, which is designed to protect ceremony and facilitators to be able to provide community-based healing ceremony with psychedelics in Oakland that we're working to get passed in the Bay Area. And I'm an advisory board member with Heroic Hearts Project, Inc., which is an incredible organization that I really hope that everyone takes a moment to check out because they help connect veterans with ayahuasca and other psychedelic therapy and healing retreats
so awesome.
Across the world. It is so, talking about, just going back to dissolving the ego and being vulnerable and just mental health and improvement and how we've had this stigma on seeking help for mental health and or talking about mental health or this it's not masculine to have problems or feelings. And so just having this platform where people are able to speak about the science of psychedelics and connect those, who have been serving our country and have really witnessed some, horrible, tragic things, heal and talk about it and help other, men and women who have served access alternative treatment options.
Trauma too, yeah, because I mean, we're from Arkansas, and I feel like that kind of stuff is going to be the last. Like, we'll be one of the last states to kind of get things like that, which really, really sucks. And I don't know. Whenever I saw that on your profile about the veterans, I was just like, just even seeing homeless people and like them having signs that they are and then kind of doing my own research into that and how they've just been not taken care of since then. I just thought that was so amazing that you're a part of that. And
Jesse Gould is the founder, and he's an incredible human who is a veteran himself and really just providing a platform for people to talk about it. So it's not this kind of just buried, experience that no one wants to burden anyone else with, or that, feels like no one understands, and just kind of putting a voice on it. And they're doing some incredible work to push through important legislation to expand access in America, and also just, that direct impact helping thousands of veterans access these programs. There's also a Heroic Hearts Project UK, which is doing some great stuff as well, and they're continuing to grow. But it's really an organization that is making a concrete, tangible, like positive impact on the community. Is
this topic more progressive in other countries, or are we actually pushing forward in something for once?
I think we are pushing forward. There are about a little over a dozen, I believe, numbers aren't my strong suit, countries that have decriminalized simple possession, or that treat it as effectively decriminalized. So people, they treat it as like a mental health issue. And so we've seen that. And then Canada has done some really cool things in sort of providing expanded access to research and development with regard to psilocybin that's coming out. So there's a lot of Canadian operators doing research and other kind of development in IP in the psychedelic space. But as far as a country who really, we led the war on drugs and kind of created the movement for criminalization across the globe, to take a kind of leadership role in removing those barriers, at least at the local grassroots level. I think that we are definitely making a huge impact and are a thought leader in that space. But as I said, we played a large role in creating that problem too.
Yeah,
so it's hard to gloat.
Will people with this becoming more legal be released from jail and like all their stuff kind of?
So that's the goal. And I do want to clarify, we are not close to legalization. We're working on decriminalization. And so definitely be careful. These substances are still illegal. You cannot legally grow them and possess them and use them. And there's significant consequences if you do. But okay, I just went on a tangent on my disclaimer again. What was it?
Basically, in the next few years, 10 years or whatever, as these things maybe become legalized or decriminalized.
Will people be released from jail?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So California's bill actually provides cease of prosecution and record sealing of individuals that have been convicted or in the process of being prosecuted for the conduct that would be made legal by the bill.
Okay.
Which is huge. And that's definitely something that is a cannabis sort of failure that they're working on, in that there's still people sitting in prison for using cannabis in states where that conduct is lawful.
Oh my God.
And so talk about another incredible organization, Last Prisoner Project, works specifically on getting incarcerated individuals in states where cannabis is lawful out of prison and jail and helping to reintegrate them into society. So it's absolutely a critical part of drug policy reform. We can't just fix the future without acknowledging the harm we caused in the past.
Yeah.
And it's a logistical kind of obstacle, and working back through the court system and identifying eligible individuals, because these people now have to report this. They have a criminal record. They're not able to get housing. They're not able to get employment. They've served their time. They've, by all standards, they've paid their retribution to society, and yet they're getting punished for it for their entire lives. So we are seeing more and more states do that with cannabis. California is a model in that regard for proposing it with decriminalization legislation, and it's a necessity, absolutely, because we're, especially with cannabis, minorities were the ones that are being enforced upon and prosecuted at exponentially higher rates than whites, and cannabis use is about equal between whites and minorities. And then now we're creating this vibrant industry where it's 90+% white male, and the people that really were the ones that deserve to be able to contribute to and build this industry are still being prosecuted and criminalized and punished for substances that now we're using to, fund schools and all of these great things and are considered essential businesses. So yes, we hope so. It's a little bit easier said than done, but now I think we've learned that from cannabis, that it's the rectifying the past injustices that were caused by the war on drugs is a absolutely critical component of any reform.
Okay.
Cool.
Dang. Well, my goodness, that was good.
We got 3 questions for you.
Yeah, we have our 3. No. Everyone always says that as we're set to wrap up this interview, which has been awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
We always ask 3 questions, and they're very random. Okay. So first one is, if you could be good at any Olympic sport, hot or cold, I mean, you could be perfect, a gold medalist, what would it be?
Ooh. Snowboarding, probably.
Okay.
Because I moved to Colorado when I was 21. My ex-boyfriend made me learn how to snowboard, but I had, I wasn't allowed to learn how to ski. And I'm like a solid intermediate with a lot of anxiety as like an adult learning how to do something scary.
Okay.
So if I could have started when I was like 3 and been a badass, and excuse me.
No, we cuss all the time.
That would be cool. I'd love to be able to do that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. What is your favorite way to cook and or eat a potato?
Ordering it from a server at a restaurant.
Just what kind of potato?
No,
fries?
No, I'm actually not that much of a big fan of fries. I love like a truffle mashed.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Truffle mash.
Do something along those lines.
Damn,
yeah.
that's a new one.
I haven't had truffle mash. Sounds fucking good.
Yeah, that sounds
more
really
mushrooms.
Yeah. Okay, and then if you could, would you rather smoke on the beach or trip in the desert?
Trip in the desert.
There we go. I knew you were my type of person. Well, dang it. This
is so fun.
Yeah,
this was so fun and informative.
Yeah.
And empowering. I'm like, hell yeah, look at us go.
Like,
I mean,
let's get this.
I'm not really doing anything.
You're spreading information. Honestly, this is what it's all about, is educating people. And so
A lot of people don't
downplay
even
your
know
impact.
that this isn't.
I'm a part of the change.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that this is even being worked on, or
Yeah.
people are still like, oh, that's this, and this, and especially from the South.
Yeah, people think that some people that I don't fuck with think I'm a druggie.
Yeah,
Because I do psychedelics. And
Yeah.
I'm like, LOL, okay.
and we don't really ever participate in it to fuck around. We're always like looking for answers.
I'm
and
just like,
stuff.
okay, like you don't get it.
Yeah,
Like when you know, you know.
Change starts within, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing the work. You can only work on yourself, and by working on yourself, you're helping others. And absolutely, don't let that
yes.
negativity affect you.
Yeah. Well, dang. Thank you so much for coming on. And
It's my pleasure.
can you tell people where to find you, what you're working on,
Sure.
or anything?
So I'm on social media, CV goes GOES_global. My law firm is linked there. It's www.barnescaplan.com. And I'm also on, LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
you can find me. But yes, this has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, y'all. This was a good episode.
Yeah.
And on that note, should we cue the funk music?
Oh my god. Okay, bye.